Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am back with episode 6 of my What If Pokemon Were in Monster Hunter series. I want to thank all new people who have joined the community here. We hit 1,000 subscribers just 2 weeks ago, and now we've already doubled that. Growth is exponential, as they say, and it's cool as hell to see the progress here. So now let's get to this video, which I feel like has been a long time coming. Redesigning the OG starters. So here we have first Venusaur. Evolution of Bulbasaur. I really think that this would be a super cool concept of like a creature to have in Monster Hunter. There's so much you could do with it. So my thought process with designing it was, you have the Venusaur, which is the actual, the animal here, right? But then you have this plant on its back. So my thought was like, it's kind of like this symbiotic relationship between the two. So like the plant itself can only grow on the back of these Venusaurs just due to like it can't grow in normal soil. It needs a special nutrient that is only like found in like the hides of these Venusaurs. So that's kind of how it grows, and then eventually like the roots themselves even embed themselves down, like pierce through the skin of the Venusaur, like even kind of attach into its spinal column. So it's almost like this one single entity now. And like I feel like the Venusaur, it's like the brains and the bronze. Like the Venusaur is actually kind of like just this big dumb brute. It's the oaf, it's the muscle, and then the plant itself is actually kind of the brains. So like the Venusaur would kind of like burrow down underground, and then the plant would use its like this sweet aroma, this sweet scent to kind of lure out the small creatures as prey for the Venusaur. And then once it gets close, that's when the Venusaur snaps him up, because he's big and slow, can't really hunt on his own. And then obviously if the Venusaur eats and stays alive, then that allows the plant to survive as well. So it's kind of just like this this symbiotic relationship between the two. And I feel like the fight mechanics themselves could be really cool. So like let's say you come upon the Venusaur, and then like phase 1, it would be kind of like a very straightforward, simple fight where you're basically just going after the Venusaur. It's the one doing everything, attacking you with its big burrowing, forelimbs, the big heavy claws, and it's got that big mouth and gullet. So like you would want to prioritize getting its weak spots, which would be more towards like the back, like the legs and the tail. And then eventually you get at the point where you damage it enough and it becomes enraged, and then that's kind of when the plant would come into play. And then you'd have like these vines come out and everything, and like just for fight mechanic purposes, like the vines would kind of only be near like the rear quarters, and basically they would kind of help defend the rear side of the Venusaur. So now you'd kind of be forced to target more of the front, which is more dangerous for you, because now you're getting these heavy attacks from the Venusaur's mouth and its claws and everything. So that's kind of like my thought process with that. And then eventually you get to the point where there's like even another phase where like the Venusaur will then burrow underground, and then you're kind of fighting the plant, and then you'll have all these other vine tendril like things just spawn up all over the place while you're trying to attack the flower itself. And then what it will do is it'll use like the sweet scent to summon all these like small creatures as like little minions, and you got to fight all these small creatures, deal with them while you're dealing with the plant and the vines. And at the same time, then it starts shooting out, because like Venusaur and Pokemon, it's known for all these different ailments like paralysis and sleep powder and poison powder and all that. So even during this point of the fight, it's going to start shooting all these different random ailments all over the place. So you got to dodge these poison clouds, these sleep clouds, these paralysis clouds, deal with all these vines all over the place, deal with the small creatures. So it's just like a real chaotic type of fight. And then maybe even occasionally like those vines, if you get to like there's a certain move where the vines can pick you up and drop you kind of like into almost like it's a Venus flytrap in the center there. So that's kind of like my thought process on like how this fight would go down. I think it'd be really cool. But yeah, here you have the completed card, Venusaur the Ambush Frog, monster class amphibian, element none, ailments poison, sleep, and paralysis, and weakness is fire and ice. And as you can see here, also kind of designed a little bit of a new template for the background, just to kind of make it look a little bit more Monster Hunter like, which I like how it turned out. So that's it for Venusaur, and now let's get on to the next one. Alright, so now we're on to probably the most popular Pokemon of all time, Charizard. I know Pikachu's the mascot, but let's be real, Charizard's probably the most favored Pokemon of all. So, you know, we had to draw him up, right? So when I was designing this, I had to kind of figure out whether I was going to stay true to Monster Hunter side of things or Pokemon. I know Charizard has, you know, arms, right? So if I was to keep the arms in the Monster Hunter sense, it would have to be an Elder Dragon. And I couldn't justify making Charizard an Elder Dragon because it's basically like the equivalent of Rathalos. You know, it's like a middle tier monster. It shows up in every series, every game. It's always there. So Charizard kind of would be the same thing. So I just had to make it into a flying wyvern, you know. I know what some of y'all are going to say. You're going to look at my first two videos and be like, oh, well, you made Flygon and Scyther, you gave them arms and didn't make them an Elder Dragon. Yeah, I know, but I also was just kind of bullshitting around back then. It wasn't like I wasn't trying to make a series out of it. I was just drawing something up and just, you know, so I wasn't really sticking true to the Monster Hunter side of things, which I'm trying to be a little bit more professional with it now. And make it more legit. So Charizard had to get rid of the arms. You get a straight up flying wyvern here. In terms of like the fight mechanics or just, you know, what the Charizard is like in general, the way I kind of figured out what we could do with the flame on the tail, how we can explain it, is normally it's not on fire. So like you see the tail, it's got like this giant ball of scales. I figured it could kind of be like a little matchstick, right? So normally it's not lit or anything, but what the Charizard can do when it's about to fight or it's intimidated or whatever, it will just kind of scrape that ball of scales on the tail against the ground and just light it like a match, and it just ignites because it's like these highly combustible flames. And then it would just use a lot of tail attacks on you, kind of like this flaming mace, and it'll just club you with it. And then like eventually over time, like the flame would kind of die out, and then you'd be a lot more safe to attack the tail then and everything there. And even if you kind of break the tail, like it doesn't get like a full cut, like you'll only kind of break off like the tips, because I don't want to completely take away Charizard's the main way the fight mechanic works. So like you could break the tip of the scales off, and then maybe throughout the fight, like it can't have as powerful or as large of a flame, and it won't use as much of tail attacks, but it can still kind of ignite the tail, you know, even after the fact. Yeah, obviously you can see I used Rathalos inspiration and design, but also Seregios. So personally, I like Seregios way more than Rathalos. I just think it's a cooler monster. So more of like the spiky kind of scales and stuff. And even I feel like maybe Charizard would kind of be more of like a knuckle walker, kind of like how Seregios or like Basilgeuse or something is, versus like how Rathalos is, where it just walks on the two legs when it's on the ground. Yeah, also when I was coloring this here, like I never really noticed, but Charizard has a really, really cool, it's very simple, but a really cool color palette. And I really like, you know, adding a little bit of extra like green and stuff here on its design here when I was doing it for Monster Hunter style. I just think it's like just a really pretty color combination. But here you have it, Charizard the Torch-Tail Wyvern, monster class Flying Wyvern, element fire, ailments Fire Blight, and weakness is water and thunder. And like I said, since Charizard's the most popular Pokemon and it always receives favoritism just like Rathalos, I figured you know, we had to kind of keep with that tradition here. So I got a little surprise for you coming up next. So let's check that out. So here we have our first subspecies on the channel, Duskwing Charizard, the Azure Flame Wyvern. Yeah, I figured if I'm going to do a subspecies, might as well be with Charizard, and I know Mega Charizard X is super popular. I know Charizard gets 2 Mega Evolutions because it gets favoritism, but I think most people typically prefer Mega Charizard X, so that's what I did here. Not much changed, you know, just obviously color palette swap, and I added the flames there coming out its mouth. The element itself would change to Dragon because Mega Charizard X is a Dragon Fire type, but I think it'd be cool to still keep the ailment as a Fire Blight. So even though these are Dragon Flames, it still inflicts Fire Blight. In terms of like the fight itself, it would just kind of be just a more amped up, aggressive version of regular Charizard. It would use a lot more flame attacks, just more chaotic, more hectic, just more dangerous overall. Yeah, so turned out pretty cool. You know, had to figure it, you know, wouldn't be too hard just to do a little color palette swap and all that. So I just wanted to include this in a video for y'all. So yeah, that's it for this one. Now let's get on to the final monster of the video. Alright, so now we got Blastoise, obviously. You can see here I kind of used a couple different references when I was designing this. Kind of the weird thing about Blastoise is, yes, it's a turtle, but if you ever look at its face, it has a very mammalian face. It's almost like a bear face. So I kind of went with that approach almost with like its body type, almost like a lot more bear-like. And then even in like the face, kind of like hippo. You know, I feel like, you know, that's an aquatic mammal that I feel like would be a good choice there. So the face, I made it more hippo-like. Yeah, when I was drawing it up, like also I was like, it's basically like a straight up kaiju. So what you'll end up seeing here after I do this kind of first rough sketch, I ended up pulling up a reference of the most popular turtle kaiju, Gamera, right there. And I was like, you know, let me just take those style of legs there and kind of implant them onto Blastoise. And I was like, we're gonna go full on kaiju with it. So yeah, the way I feel like this would work would be it'd be kind of going back and forth between being a quadruped and bipedal. Kind of think of it like an Azuros, where, you know, when it's on its hind legs and it's standing up, it's very stationary. Can't really move around much. So you're going to be getting a lot of claw attacks. You know, not anything crazy. Maybe it'll do like a if you get behind it, maybe it'll have like an attack where it'll kind of fall back to try and smash you with its shell. And then it has those, you know, cannons, obviously, and those would be kind of these. It's so highly pressurized, the water inside the cannons that get stored up, that it uses that even as like a mobility thing. So even though the Blastoise is still super slow, it can kind of jet around. So like when its shell smashes you on the back, then it can, like, it'll start shooting out like the jets from the water, and that'll kind of help it like a damn Mario turtle shell type of thing, where it just starts blasting all over the place, doing these crazy spins. And then, like, you know, when it's fighting you, you know, regularly, when it gets on like all fours, that's when you'll probably have like more bite attacks, or that's when it will be it have like such a center of gravity, then it can really utilize those cannons more, and that's when we'll just start firing off all over the place, just like these laser water beams just cutting through everything. I think it'd be pretty cool concept there, something unique in Monster Hunter. Yeah, I don't really have too much to say with this. This is pretty straightforward, you know. Just a damn kaiju, man. You know, nothing else to it. You'll see here, kind of the shell there had a very weird look, so I ended up resketching it because it was looking a little kind of like boobs with nipples on them. So I was like, let me adjust that there, because I was just testing out like a little design there. Yeah, obviously it'd be an aquatic creature to inhabit, you know, anywhere where there's water, whether it's lakes, rivers, the beach. You know, I think more beach maps in Monster Hunter would be really cool. I think that'd be a cool locale for Blastoise to hang out at. Yeah, but I don't really have too much to say about this one. It was pretty straightforward, you know, nothing crazy. So we can just let this drawing here play out, and then once it's done, we will wrap it up. So I'll see you in a bit. Alright, so now the design's completed. Just finishing up the card here. There you have Blastoise, the dual cannon turtle, monster class Fanged Wyvern, element water, element stun, weakness thunder. I feel like the weapons for Blastoise would be pretty cool. Like obviously, like the most badass weapon would be like a gun lance. You know, that'd be like the ideal coolest weapon. Like you just utilize the cannons there as the lance, and then like the big shield as like the shell. I feel like something like that would be super awesome. The weapons in general from Blastoise, I feel like would be really dope. But yeah, that's it for all these monsters here. Do me a solid if you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and that way you can be up to date and see whenever I release the next video in the series. Maybe I'll do something a little bit different for the next video. Maybe it won't be like a Pokemon and Monster Hunter thing. Maybe I'll try and switch it up. I don't know yet, but yeah, I guess that's it for me. So thank you all for watching, and until next time, I'll see y'all later. Peace out.